Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I'm H.A. Conrad, coming to you from Brooklyn, along with my intrepid co-host from the West Coast, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Ahoy, HA. How are you today?
I'm fabulous today. But even more so because we're talking about, the second half, I guess, or is this the
second third? Maybe?
Second third of the last season of the OG Walking Dead. And today we're going to be recapping, reviewing episodes 9 and 10, No Other Way, and New Haunts. And only a tidbit of a news item today, not a dearth of news this week. But the new Doctor Strange trailer is out, and not too. It's a good trailer. I'm kind of excited to see it. Did you see the most recent Spider-Man?
No, I have not. I've been remiss. So I don't know if there's any multiverse. I think there is multiverse stuff in that, right? Because there's a bunch of Spider-Men.
Yeah,
that much I know.
There is, and they make actually reference to the zombie animation piece at some point, which I don't want to give away too much. What I will say is that I just watched this and had miraculously somehow, I was in some ways deliberately avoiding spoilers for it. So I think it was much more delightful to me than it was to Bill, who had listened to a lot of reviews of it. So I think some of the fun things were not a surprise to him, and he therefore enjoyed it less. So but I had a fun time with it. I thought it was pretty good. And in any case, Doctor Strange sort of continues that idea that they're going to take a bit of those animated things and maybe incorporate it into this new film. And I don't recall, when is it out? It's out in...
Is it at the end of the trailer? I didn't
it was watch. Probably at the end of the trailer, but in any case,
May 6th.
Yeah,
it's very soon, May 6th.
Pretty soon. So anyway, that's about all. Like, I just not a ton of news this week for some reason, but
one of the other things that came up in my search for news, and it's not exactly zombie, it's not at all zombie related, but Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon project has like a really big, impressive cast. It's a sci-fi picture he's doing. The article was like, oh, it's going to be such a huge deal that it's going to get split into two movies. The thing that I did not realize about this was that apparently he pitched this to Lucasfilm and they passed on it. And then Netflix was like, we'll just do it independently. So it's going to be Star Wars. It can't be Star Wars adjacent. Like, it's not even a distant cousin, but it's going to feel, I think, like it could have been in the Star Wars universe.
That's kind of interesting. I guess he's like all in with Netflix, right? So
guess so.
I guess we'll see what happens with that. But I think we have some things to talk about with these next two episodes. Are you ready to hop in?
Yeah, I mean, I want to know, you sound upbeat compared with where we left off with Fear the Walking Dead. So do you like get into an Angela Kang space and right away you're like, oh, this is where I belong? You're getting comfortable?
I don't know if it's just because Fear the Walking Dead was so bad and this felt like a relief, which is entirely possible. I definitely have some criticisms of a few things, which I have a feeling you probably have an idea of what my criticisms might be. More to do with the new haunts than the first episode, although, I think that the storytelling at least makes sense to me. But just, for those of you like who were with us before, who maybe are catching up, there's going to be a lot of spoilers. So I just want to make sure we throw that out there. But where we left off was that Maggie's group was basically trying to infiltrate their old compound, and they basically had this insane weapon. The Reapers had an insane weapon on the roof, which was this firework explosive thing that what was it called, a watcha or something, and this was their way of sort of taking out the herd that Maggie's group had brought in whispering fashion. I like, there's some things about this part that I'm like, I don't know that this would have worked, but I did like how Maggie and her team have they understand the hiding places in this compound, It feels a little weird that the Reapers wouldn't have discovered some of this stuff, but whatever. And I think that the thing that I just have a harder time sort of dealing with is that they have built up the Reapers to be this kind of insane force, right? They're supposed to be special forces, trained. I just don't, I still have a hard time believing that they still wouldn't have been able to take out Maggie and her team, given the fact that Maggie and her team are they're decimated in numbers and people are very injured. I don't know. What do you think?
I like the fact that the Reapers are as menacing and as capable as they are. They, and they have a backstory that would support that, as opposed to other groups that these guys have faced who were just really mostly numbers. And like that was putting that on its head by saying there's only about 15 of these guys, but each one of them is more than a match for 3 of our heroes. And then you have that hallway fight at the end of this episode, or toward the end of this episode, that really just like hammers that in, right? The fight with Carver and everybody else. And I thought that was actually kind of excellent. So I enjoy the fact that they've switched it up, because for too long it was like, oh, you think you've killed all the saviors? Yeah, you've killed 200 of them. Guess what? There's 500 of them. You're just like, oh my God, this is getting exhausting. And the Whisperers, we never really had a sense of how many of them there were, and they always had the herd card to play. So I'm enjoying, to an extent, the Reapers. But to your point of, Maggie's group is beat up and everything. Yeah, remember how many people they left Alexandria with? It was all of those Blade movie extra minor extras who all died at the end of last third of the season, I guess, as well as Alden, who was left in the church. I'm struggling to remember. I think he got hurt in that fight in the empty mall.
Yeah, maybe? He did.
Yeah. But when we get to his chapter, we'll have to talk about the circumstances of what happens to him in this episode, or before this episode, I guess. I thought that this was actually pretty interesting. I'd completely lost track of how many Reapers are left. Like, it's kind of a weird place to start, I guess, for a second third of the season, because I feel like there's a lot of context that was maybe more clear at the end of or where they ended months and months ago, and where it picks up. But otherwise, I was having a good time with this part of the story. Maybe the stuff in Alexandria I was a little less enjoying. And not only because the Judith, I feel like Judith doesn't really pull her weight as much as she usually does in this.
Yeah, this is weird.
Scenes. Yeah, well, how did you like those, the basement flooding scenes and everything?
No, I mean, I felt the same way. I was much more interested in the Reaper Maggie conflict than I was in Alexandria, but I do think that it definitely did a good job of showing that Alexandria is just in pretty dire straits. They've got multiple things going on. They've got Judith and Gracie in the basement dealing with the walkers. I also feel like their sort of decision to go down and let them all fall down the stairs versus taking them out in the doorway like that. They probably would have had a little bit, although it is a pretty narrow space, but like Judith especially knows how to do this. And so that felt a little strange to me. And it was also like a lot of cuts, like, okay, every time we look, there's more of these walkers coming in. And we know that there were some adults upstairs, like, that could have probably helped out there.
You saw what they were facing though. Like,
I did.
That was a tough, like, I really liked the stairway scenes. I think that, like, going up, I mean, where the adults were.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Like, fighting them off. It does seem like after you probably put down, I don't know, 4 or 5, that the stairs would become impassable. True, and so all we saw was scene after scene of them, like, taking out walkers right there at the base of the stairs, but they just kept coming. And I was like, I don't know that maybe it would work that way, but I feel like they would just create a wall after not too many zombies.
Right. And then, but I did think that the visuals were very cool of the basement, because you've got, they take out the walkers, but if they're still animated, they're this huge danger, which we definitely see a little bit later when they finally get rescued.
I feel like Walking Dead has often teased the idea of a submerged walker, but never really followed through by saying, yeah, you're walking through hip deep water, or in this case, it's higher than that. a zombie could just bite you on the leg and you would really have no idea it was there until it was too late.
Right.
I feel like it's like we had swamp scenes in some of the Savior War episodes, but they would always like stand up and get out of the water but to attack instead of like maybe there's a crawler down there, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's still some territory that they could explore.
Yeah, definitely. And, and then we see even more of that actually with Aaron when he rescues Judith and Gracie. He does a pretty good job. I mean, he like crushes a head just with his hands and his mace. He his hand and his mace rather. But then he's in pretty dire straits and but suddenly he's like crawling along that like pipe that breaks. Like
and
it's actually
they cut and he's been rescued. And it's like, well, how did they get that rope?
Yeah, there's like they kind of do this a little bit with him there where we do not see how he gets out. So I don't know what happened here, but this is a little unusual not to show it.
A little bit, yeah.
But in the meantime, it's sort of like everything is going to hell. So while he's rescuing them, the mill is burning, the windmill is burning, and they're worried that this is going to open up a breach that will let way too many in, and it's also attracting them. I felt like they did a really good job at showing like that they are really at the end of all of their resources. They're trying to plug up breaches all over the place here. They have no food. The walkers are definitely like all over the place. So I thought that was pretty good to show where they were, which highlights the end of this episode and why certain people might make choices that they do. And then with the Reaper side of things, I do like how Maggie's group knows this like secret little thing in the hospital ward. That's kind of cool. The infirmary, like that little secret like room. I do, the Reapers aren't dumb people and they've been here for long enough that I feel like they may have discovered that, but apparently not. And there's like a couple of these little hidey holes, right? Like where Daryl like had to find it something behind the blackboard in the room, although it wasn't clear if that was just like a covered door or something. But and
Gabriel had found that sniper rifle initially.
Yeah.
At the before their last finale, and that was another like secret package that she'd left behind. Yeah, I like the fact that they've seeded this, and Angela Kang talks about it in her like showrunner's speech at the end, where she's like, "Look, Maggie was a specific kind of leader. She had things like bells and buckets of sand around for reasons." And I thought it was also interesting, like the different rooms that they went into. Like you said, the school room, there's a church, there's a chapel, there's a medical. Like they are really trying to show what this place was under, or
her leadership
with Maggie's group, who are complete, like they're all dead except for Elijah, I think, right?
Yep.
I know there's 3 or 4 of them who you see at the end of the episode. They're always wearing masks, which I feel like is weird. I mean, it's not weird in COVID for us, but it's weird in The Walking Dead to have people who have half their faces covered.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's about, but yeah. So Maggie still has a couple of people.
Yeah, and then we also have the interesting scene with Gabriel and the other priest guy, or I guess the equivalent. And they have this interesting little chat. And Gabriel's like, "You killed children. Like you killed," and the guy is like, "Oh, nobody is above redemption, or nobody is so, like you can't hear God anymore." And Gabriel's kind of like, "Yeah, no," and takes him out. And that's a very different Gabriel than we have seen. So that was a pretty significant interaction between those two.
And it's like Angela Kang says too, it's something that they've been developing over the course of after season 10 ended. We got those bonus episodes, and earlier in this season, they are working on his character. And you know what? Seth Williams deserves to have his character developed more.
Yep.
He was always kind of just a punching bag for the show for many seasons. And so I'm really happy to see it.
Yeah, and he's badass. Like he just goes and he takes that guy out, then he goes up, takes out the sniper. And that was like a kind of a cool thing that they did where, I was hoping this was coming, but I wasn't sure. But they have the confrontation between Maggie's group and the Reapers and Leah. And Leah's like, "Oh yeah, we have the upper hand on you." And this is the interesting thing, and the part that I'm like, "Oh, I'm not." Like Leah and Daryl knows better. So this is like a kind of a thing. Like Leah was definitely going to kill all of them. in my opinion. And she basically says, "Oh, shoot the woman first," and there's like a little fake out there, and it turns out that it's actually Gabriel. And then indeed the tables turn, and I do like the interaction between Negan and Maggie here.
At the grave.
No, before, like,
Just him looking at
because
her, watching her. Yeah.
he's looking at her, but she looks at him about what she should do now that they have the upper hand. And he's like, "You know what I think?" And she does. And,
I thought she got her cue from Elijah there, not from Negan.
she did, but she asked Negan.
Oh,
And
I missed that.
he does say, "You know what I think." And, he has said all along that they just need to take them out, because remember his response to Maggie about what he would have done differently. And he's like, "I should have just killed all of you."
Right.
And that's like, she knows what he thinks. And, he's not wrong. And so she does that, or tries to do that. I don't like, do you think that Daryl would be this? I guess he's just a different thought process here. And I guess maybe he's got still feelings, but having seen that Leah takes out Pope or whatever, and then tries to blame it on him and tries to like do all of this other maneuvering and was clearly going to kill them all, do you think he would have let her go? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because I think he's not stupid. He's aware of how cutthroat the Reapers have been.
Yeah.
Like they're standing in the remains of a settlement that was probably had dozens, if not hundreds, of people. So it's pretty weird.
Yeah. So I don't know about that part. And then, Maggie, like, that's the thing. It's like, so when you see sort of the recap, just like the Wikipedia recap, it says that she kills them all in a vengeful way. So I don't think she's killing them in a vengeful way, honestly. I think she's just like, I can't have these people be a threat to my people anymore. So she's taking them out. I don't think that it was, and this is to the Negan's point when she does see him a bit later. Negan's just like, "Yep, I see who you are," and he sees what she will do to protect her people. And she does take a cue from Elijah, and he has been so hurt. His sister was killed, and she's basically, I think she feels as a leader that she needs to do this as well. So she's taking care of business on this level, and then goes, and I don't know, like, that anybody really thought Alden would be alive. Maybe she did, but I think she was hoping, but I think that he was so hurt that there was probably no chance of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember even where his stab wound was. I think it was torso.
Yeah, it was torso and belly. I think it was like pretty bad.
When she gets there, there's another guy in there who's also a walker, and he's also dressed as a Reaper. What do we know what the story was with that?
I don't remember that. So I was going to like, I don't know that. I don't recall that he was in there with them. Maybe I'm like misremembering. Like, that was there another Reaper in there with him? Because I thought he was like blocked in. So maybe there was.
He was. It must just be somebody else who was like a loose end that the story had to, figure out. So, but yeah, so apparently either there was a fight that he lost, or they took each other out mutually, or the zombie came in. I don't know, but they left a little bit there untold, and that's fine. At the end of the day, Alden's dead. Maggie's upset. And with Alden dying, Negan is the last savior that we know of, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, okay. There was at some point. Okay, so other people had this question too. I just found it.
What did you find?
So basically, at some point, he engaged in a fight with an unnamed Reaper, even though he had barricaded the church door. So somehow maybe the Reaper got in there. So he engaged in a fight with the unnamed Reaper, which caused him to have his throat slit. And although he like succeeded in killing him, he had, of course, been reanimated at that point. So Maggie takes care of business. I still stand by my thought that Alden's wound was pretty pretty rough. So I don't know. In any case, she's burying him, and after she's finishing burying him, Negan comes to basically it's an interesting scene between them. But basically saying, hey, I think at some point, no matter what you promised, you're gonna do what you need to do, and I respect you for that. And there is definitely a moment where she thinks he's gonna like kill her.
There's also a couple, what is one or two moments in this episode where the old will they, won't they bedroom eyes are made at each other. And it's usually, I think it's usually coming from Maggie to Negan, where it's like just after a big fight and they're like helping each other stand up or something, but they make eye contact and they move toward each other just a little too much. So I'm like, oh, is it, could we?
Oh yeah, there's that energy. So even though he's saying this to her, even when she said, when she asked him what he thought, and he goes, what I think, there was a moment between them where I was like, okay, because and even when she's taking out the Reapers in that way, there is a look on his face that is like, that is so hot. Like that is definitely there. And so, so he is taking off, but I mean, I think everybody obviously knows that that's like TBD, right?
Is there a spinoff with Maggie and Negan?
There is, and they've announced it, and they're coming to New York, so I'm pretty psyched because maybe that means they're going to be filming here, so that's pretty exciting. But they are building something there. What we don't know yet, but it's definitely there, I think. So we will have to see what happens. And then everybody that is left of Maggie's team. So it's not that many people. It's like Maggie, Daryl, Elijah,
Gabriel.
and Gabriel, and that's it, right?
I think so.
And they're coming in, and the Alexandrians are basically like, "Oh, where's everybody else?" And
because C. Thomas Howell dead, the kid,
everybody's dead. Yeah. But the interesting, so they come and they have food. Daryl gets reunited with Connie, and that's an interesting reunion. I thought it would be a little bit more, drastic, that reunion, but it isn't. And then he's signing. He seems pretty happy to see her, but I felt like that would be a little bit more of an overwhelming reunion since everybody thought she was dead.
Yeah. Right.
But we also see the community and what, it's in ruins, it's in tatters. Everybody, but they even have like dog eating an apple. So now they have food.
It was a mission accomplished. It was kind of an interesting juxtaposition of they did the thing that they set out to do. They just came back with less than half the people that they went with. And that's, that sucks. So
but Gabriel, they even say, look, they sacrificed so that all these people could live, and that's where they're at. Maggie is a triumphant leader returning because she's at least brought food, although it feels like a bittersweet victory, obviously, because they've lost so many of their people still. And look at the community they're coming back to. Like, how do you rebuild that? The resources, like even the food that they bring back, like how are they gonna, it still doesn't seem like a lot of food.
Yeah, they just got to get to pickling too, because it's a lot of fresh produce.
Yep. And yeah, so you've got that part, and then the big cliffhanger ish here. And so this is the part where I have some questions, and I do understand why maybe they fast forwarded it because they got to like get through the season. But this is the part where Eugene arrives with the Commonwealth soldiers and Lance Hornsby. And it's such a weird thing to even see Lance Hornsby, who's the spokesperson guy in his like very clean suit, to see the Commonwealth sort of security task force, whatever they are, enforcers, in their very clean and honestly like coordinated armor. And this is the thing. So they come up and Eugene's like, oh yeah, they're here to help. And you see like the varying expressions on everybody's faces when Lance is talking, because this does not look like somebody who is struggling. So there's a promise, like, and he says this thing like, oh, we see what you built here, as it's like he's standing like in front of a background of just absolute ruination. and, says they'll give them resources to rebuild and all that fun stuff. But then he's like, but then I have another more interesting offer. And obviously he's going to offer to have them come back to the Commonwealth. And then that's kind of it. And then they fast forward to 6 months later and we see Daryl with Commonwealth soldiers, like saying that he needs to come in because Maggie has a community in Hilltop, I guess.
Yep, they've rebuilt it, maybe.
Yeah.
You get kind of a view over the wall. Like, I don't remember if the manor, if they've put something on that site, because everything was burned. Like,
yeah, everything was burned down. So
going back to Hilltop does not really make sense to me, because that site, unless maybe it had a well, I think it did have a well. So if there's a water source, sure, you could build something around it.
And there's a lot fewer people, so maybe it's just easier to build for them, especially if a lot of people have gone to the Commonwealth, which is implied by the fact that Daryl is leading these soldiers. And we do find out more in the next episode. But they say 6 months later. And so suddenly we're like, okay, so what do we need to catch up on? And then they hop to 30 days after the Alexandrians have entered the Commonwealth. And this is sort of where I have some criticisms, which is that you have this group of people that have been living in such desperate straits. I just feel like there's going to be a lot more adjustment. Like, there's certainly relief, but there's a lot more adjustment. First of all, being around these people in the way that they're living here. There's definitely like this weird thing where you've got such an embarrassment of riches that they have not seen for such a long time, that I feel like there would be a lot more sort of like shell shock or a culture shock or something about being in this community, because it's only been 30 days, right?
Yeah.
So, and they all have kind of like quote unquote new jobs, and we saw the process. So I do think it was a clever way so that we saw what Eugene and Kumiko and everybody else and Princess all went through. So we knew that happened. So they're assuming that we remember that, the sort of like,
I didn't remember that. I find it kind of absurd that someone with the skills that Magna has, which is like basically a lethal killing machine, and they make her a waitress because that's what she did in the old times.
Well, I think that they probably gave her an offer to join the force and she said no. And that is implied when she has a conversation with Rosita later. So I think maybe Magna made that choice, but it's not a great choice. And then we've got, I also think that it is kind of funny, and I did like this touch, but whenever Carol is baking, that is a dangerous time for all around her. Because usually she's doing that as a way to either kind of infiltrate something or get information or do something. It never ends well when she's baking. And so she's like working at the bake shop again, same thing. Which is unclear whether she may have been offered to do to be in part of this force, or whether she's deliberately masking and hiding. With Carol, I suspect hiding. But we'll hopefully find out more later.
That exchange she has with Daryl at the beginning of the episode, where she's like, maybe we don't have to do anything to make this place work. And Daryl's the one who's like, no, we always have to. And then she has to go on that whole mission to get Ezekiel to the front of the surgery line, which is like, that's the Carol we expect. But at the beginning of this episode, she feels, it seems as if she is finally letting down her guard. Like, and maybe not in the Carol way that we've seen her do it before, by putting on a sweater and a smile and making arrowroot cookies. It
maybe, but I still have suspicions.
Well, she's clearly still got her skills. Like, she goes on a mission to just get French wine, whatever
wine to get Ezekiel to the front of the line, and clearly still cares about him. I like how they do have an interaction between her and Ezekiel, and they're kind of, not they're very comfortable with each other. It's not clear if they're totally, they're pretty cozy.
It's good so that he seems to be completely fine being around her now, whereas he was so miserable.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where they're going with that. But she's also coming to some kind of a peace with her son's death. So much so that Ezekiel gives her back the box that had all of his precious things in it. So that's an interesting thing. We've also got Daryl, who's really trying, he is clearly somebody who has been a leader, he goes off on his own. That's his MO. And in this case, he is being told that he's got to do more teamwork and play the game, basically. So, you know, we see like, we see him basically having to rein in some of those instincts. Rosita seems to be a little bit better during their training sessions or whatever they call their boot camp, right? At playing this game. But she was also part of a military unit before, so probably understands it a lot better than he does too, right? She understands what this means and I think gets the nuances, right? A little bit more than he does. Remember, Daryl didn't do anything like this before. This is like an incredibly different thing. And you know, I feel like that's kind of an interesting storyline to tell, right? And Daryl getting notes from Mercer, because Mercer's kind of like, hey, these are the things you got to do. And, you know, Rosita is very supportive of Daryl. So even to the point when they have to go and sort of somehow back up Sebastian, who wants to pretend he can kill zombies. Like, that's like an odd thing. And then Daryl kind of embarrasses him in front of his mom.
Yeah. Well, he embarrasses himself, I think.
Well, he does, but he feels like Daryl has embarrassed him. And
so
then
that guy is named Sebastian, you said, is a problem. Like, he's going to be a problem. He's already a problem. Like, Eugene got in trouble with him already for saving him from zombies because he got blood on his date's dress or something.
Yep.
He is going to be definitely a problem. So is the governor, or whatever her name is.
Yep.
Pamela Milton.
We already get little notes on her, Connie. And this is the interesting thing. Connie apparently used to be a reporter. We find out like sort of prior things that people used to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is that apparently Connie got Pamela Milton's uncle kicked out of Congress, and Pamela Milton's dad was a president. We're talking about like a family that clearly this is like a Kennedy-like or a Bush-like family that's been in politics. So that's implied. And there's definitely a lot of elitism and different like strata of this society. I guess my thing is that I just still feel like there's a lot of questions I have to support such a community, and that you would be able to keep this sort of going, just all the things that we're seeing.
Oh yeah, we need to see more of the back side of how this all we've seen Main Street a few times, like enough Main Street. Let's see the farmers fields, let's see the mill district, let's see how they're like making all this work. Like, how are they making their ammo? We need to actually see some of the industry that makes Main Street here, especially when they also imply that there are thousands of people in the Commonwealth. There's more work that could be done here, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we also have Tomi, who is Kumiko's brother, who had been hiding that he was a thoracic surgeon, and now he's working as a surgeon. We don't know how that happened, but now, you know, he makes a comment during this party with the governor that he had made a deliberate choice because he found this to be absolutely distasteful, that there was like the haves and the have-nots here. And then we learn a lot more because somebody has infiltrated the party. This is a guy, Tyler, who Princess had actually beaten up, and apparently because of that has been demoted. And I thought he was made into a waiter. It was unclear to me, like, and then later they say that he somehow infiltrated the party. He almost takes out Max, who is the governor's right-hand woman. And like, there's like a confrontation, and then there is an implication that there is a resistance and that it's a lot, and that people are definitely not taking some of this lying down, basically. But then there is a manhunt for Tyler, and we have Rosita, who's supposed to be basically interrogating Magna and finding out how the guy got in and all of this other stuff. So there is like this veneer of wellness here that isn't, but there's a grossness here too. Like, it's just kind of weird that you have this whole party going on. and that people can take part of it by winning, quote unquote, the lottery, so that they get to hang out with these people in the higher ups, in the higher echelon, I guess, of this society. So that is, it's hard for me to think that Daryl and some of these others, Rosita included, would be so accepting of this. But maybe we're waiting to see more. Maybe they're trapped. I mean, we also have a lot of people that they love here. I mean, you've got, it's Ezekiel. It's like a lot of our mainstays are in this thing. So maybe there's a danger to them. If anybody, as we've seen, if you don't fit in here, there are repercussions, and pretty swift repercussions. So it's hard to tell whether they actually are into this or just kind of playing along. I don't know. What are your thoughts about this?
I had some strong Romero vibes from the party, and the class struggle that they're setting up. And I think it's really interesting to have our cast of heroes spread out through. You've got, is it Yumiko or Kumiko? I thought it was Yumiko.
Oh, sorry. I thought it's Yumiko. You're right.
We've screwed it up so many times, and now I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. It is Yumiko, right?
Yumiko is among the elite, right? So her and her brother, they've got these skills. Like being a lawyer is actually valuable. Come on, sorry. But they've got these skills that are valued in this society. So they are elites. And then you've got the Magnas, who are, scullery maids or whatever. And then you've got your enforcers, and like merchant class, I guess, which would be your Carol's and Ezekiel's perhaps. And I don't know what Eugene is doing in this community, but he generally has good skills that he should be applying, other than just going to Alexandria. I don't know what they've got him doing as a job.
Right.
Because he was in so much trouble last time we saw him. I thought that it seemed like he was maybe not going to get out of the doghouse anytime soon. But our cast is nicely spread out through the different casts, with an E. That I think any sort of class struggle storyline will have built-in dramatic tension just among our core cast, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you even see, and apologies, it is Yumiko. And she's so even though she has these skills, she's like doing things like paying the staff at this party, which I thought was weird. And she and Magna have like a look at each other, and we know like that's going to probably be something we will explore later, is my guess. Because Yumiko is now in this strata, and same thing, like Magna is like at probably the lowest part of this, and her words with Rosita tells you that maybe she did make a choice not to participate in this, and we do see the different in the background, like Daryl's waiting to get this job as one of these enforcers, and his
apartment, I thought that was a really interesting scene.
Yeah,
it's so loud in there, and they talk about these walls are paper thin, I didn't sleep at all. And Rosita has a throwaway line with him on their way to that training mission they did, where she's like, it's so weird to have to worry about money again. And I agree. I'm like, wow, yeah, you guys should feel like that isn't something you have to work on right now. It's funny that the Commonwealth is a capitalist enclave instead of being we've seen a few other kinds of communities come up, and it's usually work for participation, or a barter system, or the points system that the Saviors had, which also set up some inequalities.
Right.
But these guys have just gone with straight up capitalism, right? They had everybody turn in any cash that they had when they arrived last season. So I'm kind of interested to see what else they do with this allegory.
Right. I mean, and in some cases, goods do get you places. I mean, we see that Carol goes outside the walls. She sees that they want wine. She finds wine. She brings it back. I like that she keeps a bottle for herself, or more probably. And so, but overall, yeah, they have a cash system in place. That line that Rosita has about it. And we also see that Daryl has Judith and RJ with him, and he desperately wants to give them better stuff and ask them if they want to stay. And when they say they want to stay, I think that then he goes all in, and you see him making different choices. So he allows Sebastian to bring Tyler back as pretending he captured him. I think everybody understands the reality that Sebastian didn't capture anybody, but they let him go through this theater. and he and Mercer exchange a look. So, and then we see later on the episode that they are in a new, better apartment. Judith has a dress on. He's wearing the uniform, and he also has bought her a record player. And before, she did not have money to even buy an album, and was gifted a Motorhead album. And then for the second time, again, we see them use a song. So they are definitely using all their budget for different things here, but it's a Motorhead song. That's pretty significant.
What's the refrain in that? I'm forgetting. It was something that it made a lot of sense.
It's like "Eat the Rich."
Eat the Rich. Right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so, and there's a little like montage where they're like raiding where supposedly they got a tip where the resistance are. They see propaganda. They see all this stuff.
I think this is supposed to be that kid's house, the one who
Maybe
made the fuss. Oh, that's what Angela Kang says in the after.
Oh, okay.
After
I didn't catch that that's what it was. I thought maybe they got more intelligence, but I guess that makes more sense. And there's just a lot of different propaganda there. So I think we're going to see more of that later. But I do like how they set everything up here, and compared to what we saw in Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, let's compare and contrast a little bit.
I mean, this makes sense to me. They're building up different tensions. They're building up different storylines. We see, as you said, all of our sort of mainstays, other than Maggie for the most part, are here and are in different parts of this community.
But we're also seeing consistency for the most part with how they've been written. Like
right.
Rosita has gone through some stuff over the course of her career on The Walking Dead, but this like feels like Rosita could be taking these actions. Daryl they've developed his character. They've given him the responsibility of these two children who aren't his,
right,
to raise, and he's stepping up in a way that makes sense according to the way his character has been developed. And you just see more consistent writing and a through line with this cast than you do with Fear the Walking Dead. And I think that's at the heart of the problems with the other show.
It is. And, even with characters that we don't know as much about, Mercer, Tommy, the governor, Sebastian, these are still very consistent things that we're seeing with how their characters have been written and what we know about them to this point, right? So we didn't even know that much about the governor before, but we started to get an idea. And they really like brought it home here, just even in the little speech that she gave, even in how she dealt with the resistance person, like with Tyler getting in there, and how she talked to him, kind of putting forth what her propaganda was. Lance Hornsby, we saw him during the interactions with Eugene and Princess and others, and then we see him dealing with Carol. All of these are very consistent in what we know about even the minor characters. Mm-hmm. So it's just, to me, a much better form of storytelling, and it makes sense. And I think we can already see where some of these storylines may go in this season. And it's even tied in, I don't think it's shocking that Maggie would not take the offer to come here. So I'm really kind of like, by comparison, I really did enjoy it. The only thing that I would like to see a little bit more of how this whole community works versus just seeing sort of the end results. As you and I were saying before, keeping a community like this going takes vast amounts of resources and people. And so I wonder if we will be seeing maybe an even lower case in the system where they're like the people that are harvesting food, right?
Yeah, you got to have the workers. The workers have to be somewhere.
Right.
We don't see a lot of that yet. Yeah, we've seen basically merchants and some service people, but merchants and elites and the military.
Right. So it feels like there's got to be more to this, and maybe they are waiting to do a big reveal of that. So I hope so, because I'm kind of excited to see that, which will make this even more honestly despicable, that there's people in such a bad place in this society. So that's sort of my take on it. I don't know that I have all that much to add. any predictions for the next episode?
Ooh, boy. So yeah, Sebastian's gonna get Daryl into some sort of escapade. I feel like
Yeah.
He's gonna put Daryl into a position where he has to make a moral decision,
Yep.
and he will probably not. I don't know. Maybe that could go either way, but yeah. So Daryl's gonna have to make a choice at some point that Sebastian forces on him, and maybe it'll put Mercer in an antagonistic relationship with somebody on the cast. They're really trying to ship him and Princess, which I like, and I don't want. I want Mercer to be a good guy and a friendly, but he seems like a formidable dude, and so I feel like he would also make a good antagonist. And like how deep are his roots with Lance Hornsby and the governor. Hornsby is also going to be another thorn in the side of everybody because he clearly, like, they're not hiding the fact that he is an ambitious man.
Oh yeah,
and is not satisfied with his status. Like he wants.
Well,
more.
and I also think so I like how I do like kind of how they're shipping Mercer and Princess because Mercer has made comments and like he's made comments to multiple people just about the decisions and the things that he has made and the things that he lets go, basically to keep a society going. And this is what he basically said to Daryl, which is, hey, you've got to figure this out because this is a good thing and you don't want to ruin it. But you can also see that he is troubled by how he is treated by the governor, by others. You can sense that there is a great deal of sympathy with what happened to Tyler. So I wonder if he will maybe join forces with them, but it could go either way. You're right. He could become their enemy. But I kind of feel, at least at this point, they're hinting that he may turn, and maybe it's him that makes the decision about Sebastian, because Sebastian really does have a truly punchable face.
Oh God.
He plays, I have to say, he plays this so well.
Yeah.
He is incredibly unlikable and horrible. And I thought that in the episode with Eugene. So I have to hand it to him. He plays this like horrible character to the hilt and does a really good job at it. So I'm wondering, but I agree, he's going to have to be the pinnacle of something bad, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens here. And, my guess is that whatever's happening with Maggie is that they are hiding somebody within the walls of Hilltop, or they're doing something that is, that there's something that our Commonwealth does not agree with in terms of how they're managing themselves. So I guess we'll have to see what happens. But contrary to how I felt about the other one, I am pretty psyched. I did not go forward in these episodes, even though I very much wanted to, and I had to actually like stop myself.
Same. Yeah. I'm eager to keep watching this. It's so weird to go from one show in this franchise to another and have such a night and day response to it. I don't know. It's kind of surreal.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's all I have to say. I'd love to hear what our listeners think. If you have any comments about these two episodes, send us an email, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can leave us a note on our site, reanimatedpodcast.com, or you can tweet at us, reanimatedpcast. And until next time, ciao.
Thanks for listening, and bye.